What's up, everybody? Welcome to FoundFlix. On this Ending Explained, we're checking out the new 4th entry in the Hell House series, Hell House Origins LLC, the Carmichael Manor. This time we follow internet sleuths that travel to the manor, the site of the brutal Carmichael family murders back in 1989. There, the team discover a terror that's lurked in the shadows long before Hell House LLC. Now, you might think based on the word Origins right there in the title, or perhaps the fact that the Abaddon Hotel burned down along with the gate to hell being closed in Part 3 Lake of Fire, the Carmichael Manor would be a prequel. That's not the case, as it turns out, with this surprisingly being set after the original trilogy. I guess that evil wasn't so vanquished after all. Since the end of the trilogy did feel pretty definitive, Carmichael Manor does have to jump through some hoops to even validate its existence. However, it still works quite well as an extension of the series, and I'd say this actually is easily the best since the original. The story may be as convoluted and overly expository as usual, but where the series really shines is in creating effective, low-budget scares. Carmichael Manor does deliver in this aspect, and this is another worthwhile entry in the long in the tooth, at this point, found footage format. So let's check out Hell House LLC Origins, the Carmichael Manor, longest title ever, breaking down the story, including how the evil survived, the important origins that we do learn about the series, as well as explaining the ending that teases the series continuing in a new direction. Through a sort of faux documentary style, two experts find it difficult as to where to even start the tragic tale of the Carmichael Manor. The house itself is located deep in the woods, miles and miles of dirt roads deep to even reach the estate. The family was torn apart when one October morn, Sister Catherine and the matriarch were both found brutally slain in their beds. The obvious suspect was the father Arthur, but this theory doesn't quite stack up, as Arthur, as well as his 20-year-old son Patrick, have been missing for the past 30 years, as though they simply just vanished into thin air, which actually isn't out of the ordinary when it comes to Hell House, though the Arthur theory remained, as there was only one set of footprints found in the snow leaving the house. He also gets more blame, as Patrick had lost the use of one of his arms after a car accident a year prior that killed his sister Margaret. Not long after the murders, rumors of the house being haunted started to swell. As we see through a vintage news report, a guy doing a story on the family is interrupted by a ghostly loud banging sound. The poor guy has to keep doing take after take, and you can tell that he just wants to get the heck out of there. Outside of the Carmichael family, very few were ever permitted to stay in the house, that is, until Margot Bentley's investigation, which is the main crux of our story. This guy Bradley co-created the hilarious names netsleuths.com with Margot, and together they have investigated several supposedly haunted locations. None of them actually were real until they encountered the Carmichael Manor. And as Bradley details, the footage that was recovered was rife with strange and inexplicable moments. He last heard from Margot on her way to the manor, and the last time they were ever heard was on a frantic 911 call the night before their deaths. We hear Rebecca sounding terrified, shrieking, "There's something in the house! It's not him!" before the call cuts off. We then start at the beginning of their journey in the days leading to their mysterious deaths. Along the way, they stop at a Greasy Spoon diner and ask the dude about the house. He knows all about it and is bowled over that they actually got permission to stay there. Back when he was a teen, his buddies would party outside the house but never went inside. Probably a good idea. That's why he's still alive. The couple's dynamic becomes quickly established as they get closer. Margot is overly excited and a bit obsessed with all this haunted murders kind of thing, while Rebecca is mostly just along for the ride. Do they really have to stay in the creepy house? Why not a hotel room, Rebecca wants to know. But as Margot counters, where's the fun in that, right? After getting briefly lost, they pull up to the manor and Becca is impressed. The family must be loaded. Margot pauses for a moment at the threshold before stepping inside. Big mistake. They meet with the caretaker Donald, who gives them a tour and fills them in on some more history of the place. The house is still in the Carmichael family, but no one has lived here since the murders, and indeed it has stayed almost exactly the same in appearance since 1989. He apologizes that they couldn't get everything set up. Due to the story of the house spreading, companies aren't exactly chomping at the bit to come out here. Well, imagine that. Others want the house shut down to the public completely, but the compromise is shorter term stays like Margot. Heck, they could have even had 10 days if they wanted. But as he notes, no one stays more than a few nights anyway. He shows off Catherine's room, who was a scant 17 years old when everything went down. She dreamed of being a filmmaker and was constantly taking home movies of all kinds. They notice some closed off doors, and he dismisses it as simply being old storage. They haven't been there in years, and he doesn't even have a key anymore. On the way out, he casually brings up something of extreme importance. Hey, you guys ever heard of the Abaddon Hotel? Oh, well, yeah, it's just one town over from the manor. How about that? Margot knows it burned down a few years ago, but as she learns, a local antique store has recovered several items from the hotel. They should check it out. There's another surprise member of the team on his way to join the crew, her troubled brother Chase. Rebecca is annoyed hearing that he's coming, feeling that he's more of a liability than anything. Margot pleads to just give him a chance, positive that he's gotten himself together this time. The girls make their way around the estate, and Margot somehow manages to get that old storage room opened up, or it just opened on its own. Not sure what happened there exactly. We see why it was locked up, finding a bunch of creepy ass clown mannequins in there, including the same one with Pinstripe seen throughout the original trilogy. Chase arrives, and an excited Margot unleashes a barrage of questions upon him regarding how he's been. Back with Alicia, we learn about the origins of Margot's interest in solving these cases. When she was around 10 years old, she and her family went to a county fair. She got separated from her family, and a strange man attempted to lure her away. She realized that something was amiss and screamed, causing the man to flee. However, she was unable to actually ID him. She considers that as Margot got older, the seriousness of what happened sunk in. She could have died that day. And indeed, several people did go missing from the fair and were never found. Perhaps in some way she feels responsible, and this led to her drive to solve similar mysterious cases. They settle in for night one, and Margot goes through the steps of what happened on the night of October 10th, 1989. There was no sign of forced entry, and only a single set of footprints was found leaving the house. Yet things soon don't work in the theory. The bodies that were found were completely covered in blood, but there was no blood found in the house or out in the snow. As for Patrick's body, again it was never recovered, leaving his fate wide open. Chase pipes up, a bit confused by his role here. He's not a sloth like them. The girls giggle at his ridiculous blunder. Seriously, the dude has never heard the word sleuth before, or he's just a total dumbass. Those are your two choices. Margot directs him that she wants 2 cameras rolling at all times, no matter how mundane the moment is. She wants everything captured. Speaking of, Margot fires up a camera right in Becca's face, who has a bunch of work to deal with her new real estate job. There's something that she struggles to reveal to Margot. While she does love going on these adventures, this will be her last one for a while. She really needs to focus on her job and really needs this to stick. She checks in with Chase and chides him for not filming. He shrugs that he'll start tomorrow, even taking it to the bathroom with him. He wonders if she actually thinks that this place is haunted, and Margot admits that she's not sure, but if it is, make sure to get it on tape. He's confused. All the other places that she's been weren't haunted, so why the call this time? It spills out that their mom actually called Margot as he had another incident, and this would be a good way to keep an eye on him. He's pissed at the revelation, seething that he doesn't need help. She argues that he went missing for 2 days, and he denies that that is how things happened. Later, Margot wakes to Rebecca out of bed filming. She swears that she heard what sounded like a girl's voice singing from downstairs. Margot forges ahead downstairs, focusing in on the darkness, but nothing is heard or seen. Yet. That changes in the morning when Rebecca mockingly does her own Net Sleuths intro, all to capture her changing the sheets. The old ones had a smell. Yeah, I'll bet. She changes the linens and turns to face the lens, seeing a woman's bloody body in bed behind her. She slowly turns to face forward, and I'm pretty sure that's Catherine. Definitely got some spirits in rest up in this place. Margot is back to searching through the storage room, digging through an old crate. There's a bunch of clothing inside, also finding a picture of the same clown outfit, along with pieces from a knockdown Midway game. When holding it in her hand, Margot is clearly affected, bringing her back to what happened at the fair. Rebecca pops in, pulling out some red balls, and she can tell Margot is rattled, but she insists that she's fine. Before heading out to the antique store, she reconnects with Chase, reminding him to film everything. After they leave, he does so, and jokes around doing a bunch of silly stuff for the camera. He cackles that she's brought this on herself, but the joke ends when he hears a strange thud. He grabs the camera and finds a red ball waiting for him out on the floor. The floorboards start to creak, as though someone is approaching, and Chase assumes that it must be a prank. Not so much, catching a figure's silhouette just down the hall. He keeps shouting hello, and the figure vanishes. He slowly continues onwards, coming to the storage room. He swings the camera around, getting a scare from the clowns, and one's head has changed positions from before. Creepy! At the antique store, there's an entire section devoted to stuff taken from the Abaddon, most of it from before the fire, the owner says. However, we also see a piece from the basement that was taken after. And remember, the basement was pretty much the source of all the bad energy in the hotel, trying to open that portal to hell and everything. Nothing is of too much interest until they notice a grandfather clock. Apparently, Rebecca is an expert on this particular brand, and they typically have hidden compartments. This one does as well, uncovering a treasure trove of papers along with some film canisters and a cross necklace inside, which Margot really decides to steal. Sure, steal the cursed artifacts, that's always a wise choice. Margot glances through a letter, finding one most likely from Andrew Tully himself, the leader leader of the Hell cult from the hotel. He orders the entire staff to be present on the 15th of September, saying that the hotel will be closed. Then there's mention of most likely his daughter Beverly, who he wants found quickly, warning that she might be pregnant. Wonder where that's going. Chase is still tending with high levels of strangeness on his own, chuckling nervously when the power cuts out. Much more frightening is what sounds like a child giggling somewhere nearby. He then terrifyingly spots an arm reaching around the corner for him. He steps slightly closer and they slink back, freaking him out. A girl wearing a white mask peeks around, staring at him silently. Chase starts understandably hyperventilating, shouting for them to say something. He psychs himself up and rushes to their hiding spot, but the girl is gone. Fortunately, the girls return home and he shows them the frightening footage. They are starting to think that Margot might be right about this one. It's haunted for reals. Bradley is bowled over by the importance of what Margot discovered in the clock, touting it as game-changing. It was always there, hidden the whole time Hell House was there. Insomnia and everyone else that went through the hotel, seeing it prominently in footage from the previous films. The compartment was just sitting there waiting for someone to open it, and 30 years later, Margot did. Not sure who put it there in the first place though. By the time Bradley got the footage in his hands and developed, Margot had already been dead for several days. He assumed that it would be footage of the hotel, but he was shocked to see it actually featured the Carmichaels, establishing a direct connection with the hotel and the manor. We see a home video shot by Catherine where she gets pranked by her siblings, including Margaret donned in that same creepy white mask. It's all a joke at her expense, and Margaret is off to the city where she's performing Faust. That sure comes up a lot in these movies. Catherine asks to tag along, but she's told that their mother won't let her. Probably for the best, as this was the night of her fatal accident. For Patrick, they say that he was never the same after losing his sister. The group continue to pore over the Abaddon items, reading off creepy notes about how all things die and never come back. And when they do return, the most common side effect is bleeding from the face. Well, that doesn't sound good. Return from where, Becca wonders. Hell, most likely. Chase goes for the cross necklace, saying that he could use some good luck, and instantly the power shuts off, followed by more giggling. They set out to find the breakers, and the door to it won't budge. No worries though, as the lights randomly come right back on. Margot begins to apologize, but gets frozen seeing something. It's another ball, yep, from all the way upstairs, and they're really starting to feel that something isn't right here. Ghost hunting experts, huh? The next morning, Chase wants to gauge how Becca is feeling about this, recognizing that Margot can be a bit obsessive and hard-headed. She's okay for now as long as she has internet, and they agree to have each other's back. There's no need to stay here any longer than necessary. Speaking to this point, Bradley feels that even now, there's more than enough evidence to prove the truth about the Carmichael Manor. He's confused, as none of them even seem really fazed by what they've seen so far, and it's really only Chase urging any kind of caution. But he laments that things only got worse from there. Rebecca gets ready for her big real estate presentation, set up virtually with another lady, Linda. She scrolls through the pictures for a listing, and things are normal enough at first, until a random photo of the hotel appears, and Becca continues unbothered. She pulls up another listing, which turns into a photo of the Carmichael Manor foyer. Becca is confused, as more and more photos of the house begin popping up. Linda asks if it's the wrong file, but Becca says that she didn't even take these pictures. She moves on to the next photo, and it's her sitting in the chair right now. She turns to look back, but there's nothing there. She flips to another, and a woman is standing in the room with her. Becca is really unsettled now, and flips through to another with the girl inches from her face. The same lady from the bed. Becca flips, and the call cuts out, killing the entire internet in the house. Becca relays to Margot what happened, and she's more interested in seeing the footage, not even really acknowledging her girlfriend's distress. This reaches a boiling point, and Becca unloads that she might have just lost her job, and all these ghost stories are just a hobby, a way to satisfy her obscure obsessions. Becca is ready to throw in the towel, and Margot is shocked. We finally find a real haunted place, and you want to just leave? She turns to Chase, and he squeamishly agrees that they don't need to overstay their welcome. One more night, they all concur, agreeing to leave first thing in the morning. Back to the Abaddon stuff, one photo doesn't seem to fit, featuring two clowns marked as being from the Clarksburg Fair in West Virginia in 1975. She then notices a carnival game behind him, the very same one from the crate in the storage room. So how did all that wind up in the house and those photos in the clock? Becca wants to leave immediately, which Margot promptly shuts down. The discussion is silenced when a buzzer goes off. It's someone or something using the old house call system, and Chase discovers it's coming from Patrick's room. Margot grabs Chase and leaves Becca with a camera on her own to investigate. They very slowly enter the room and get a fright from the clown. How did that get in here? Chase cries. He tentatively gets closer and grabs its face, revealing that it is indeed just a mannequin to his relief. Becca downstairs then hears a weird noise. She turns a corner and a ball rolls out to her from a dark room. She whimpers, approaching the closet. She flips the light on, encountering another clown there waiting for her. The others rush to her side, and Chase gets startled again. Dang, clowns keep popping up all over the place. Along with his sister, Chase decides now is the time to tell her the truth about the strange encounter he went through. There was some little girl that said she was lost and wanted him to help her. The only problem is that she wasn't real and kept disappearing and reappearing wherever Chase was. Oh, and she also said that her and her mom were guests at the hotel. I'm sure we can guess which one. And he assures her that he was on his meds. Only now does the last thing the girl said to him keep sticking in his mind. Go with Margot, she said. And oddly enough, it was the very next day Margot called and invited him out here. Chase gets that this place is not only fucked, but it seems to be messing with him. We're out of here tomorrow, right? Yeah, tomorrow, his sis glumly replies. She wants to make sure that he's okay on his own, and Chase says he'll be fine. Just gonna stay here and have a little drinky poo. That'll help. As she leaves, they exchange I love yous, which is good since it's the last time she'll see him ever again. Well, alive. The pair are awoken at one point by a noise outside the room. Margot gets closer to listen, and it seems that they're okay for now. Strangely, when they wake up, they spot what must be Chase's duffel bag on the stairs, and Becca can tell something is wrong. They frantically scour the house for him, but he appears to have disappeared, even leaving his phone behind. The last text they got from him was last night asking Margot, was that you? She didn't get it at the time, and she was asleep. Becca gets anxious, understanding that he probably didn't wander off. I'm not sure why the girls wouldn't check his camera for footage. At least Bradley did, detailing what really happened to Chase. He pours himself a whiskey, scoffing that Margot really picked a winner this time. Let's just hope that they can survive to tell the tale, which is ironic because he's dead now. There's a sudden pounding at the door, and he walks out calling for Margot. He texts her the "is that you" message and gets right back to drinking. He later turns in for the night, but is constantly awoken by more knocking. But every time he looks out, there's nothing there. Things progress later in the night, as he says he heard his door open. Something opened the door. He flips the lights on and gets a real spook, seeing the Pinstripe clown facing the wall. When he briefly leans down, it cranes its neck towards him. I'm gonna go, he stammers. Just gonna get my bag and leave, clown dude. We're cool, right, bud? He is forced to perilously walk right in front of him, crying that he's sorry, and tiptoes out in the hall. He shouts after that they're going, and when he spins back, the clown is there, closer now. He looks back again, and the clown is straight up walking right towards him. For the first time in the entire series, he is on the move. The clown descends upon him. Chase yelps, and the recording cuts off. We then jump back to September 4th, 1989, and another of Catherine's home movies, picking up with Patrick after the crash, and he is not handling Margaret's death well. Found blankly staring out the window with all the clowns in the crate crowding his room. Now seeing that familiar third clown, which wasn't seen earlier in the storage room. Oh, and what appears to be the actual outfit Margaret died in, her bloody dress along with her Faust mask. Catherine is disturbed by the sight, and Patrick croaks, what if someone told you they could bring her back? Catherine is befuddled. Who told you that? And reminds him that she is definitely gone. She then notices the chest, and he grumbles to keep her mitts off of it. She leaves him something as a kind of protection, she says, that same cross necklace that was found in the clock. She then waits for him to leave so she can rummage through the crate of mystery, finding the same Midway game pieces, and the film starts getting dodgy. Also amongst the items, she finds some sheet music, and I'm like, oh, I bet I know what it is. Boom, 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 boom. This time it has lyrics for some reason that sounds like an evil prayer. Grasp your crosses, pray to him, you'll never be back. Stay with him, you'll never come back, she sings over the droning piano chords. At the end, she's even more worried, wondering where the hell her brother is working. I'll give you one guess. Yup, the Abaddon. He's tied up with Tully and his cult. We pick back up with Margot, still in search of the missing Chase. Becca declares that it is time to go, while Margot refuses to leave without her brother. He could have had an episode and could come right back, you know? They argue on the subject until agreeing to give her a few more hours. Becca relenting to stay until 2, and then she's leaving with or without her or Chase. The talking heads then turn their discussion to the origins of Andrew Tully. Not much is known about his early days. He was once a religious man living in Arkansas in the 60s. He had a younger daughter, Abigail, that died, and from there things become a bit hazy. He later fled town on an arrest warrant where he had a serendipitous encounter. Thomas Rollins and Freddie Perkins. Before meeting him, they were, yep, you got it, running a down and clown Midway game through the 60s and 70s. Now we understand the origin of the two clowns, but then there's still the third one that was already in Patrick's room in the 80s. Bradley believes that it was back on those fairgrounds that the cult was truly created. From meeting at the fair, the trio moved on to the Abaddon, where they built the hotel to cover their true evil intentions. And then they hired many locals to work there, including Patrick. Interestingly, there is actually a mention of Patrick Carmichael back in Hell House 2. It's a very brief reference, but still interesting and ties into what we still have yet to learn about Patrick. 4 o'clock rolls around and there's still no Chase, and Margot is finally ready to give in too, apologizing to Chase through tears. Leaving won't be so easy as they try the car and it's totally dead. Rebecca completely loses it over the seemingly hopeless situation. Margot thinks they can walk it. Sure, it's 12 miles, but they should be able to make it to the main road before sundown. Not a great idea, but the alternative is to stay at the manor another night. Thusly, they set out on their arduous trek through miles of woodlands. They come to an area with tons of waste barrels in a pile, along with a small structure with a work surface. Has anyone ever seen those barrels used for anything but storing bodies? Didn't think so. This informs us there's been a lot more killing going on out here than just the Carmichael family. The cult definitely has a presence out here. They come to another odd shed structure with nothing inside. Again, what was that for? Even more troubling, they come to a pile of pallets with makeshift crosses. On one is a sort of scarecrow made with someone's clothing, again indicating more killing has gone down here than just the family. That becomes abundantly clear when what the subtitles describe as the entity shrieks through the woods. They pass a few beat up old cars, including a hearse. Seriously, what is all that stuff doing out here? Something else catches Becca's eye. A black-robed figure standing in the distance. More appear, and the girls pick up the pace as the shrieking continues. We did see similar-looking dudes in Lake of Fire, and the assumption is that these robes are other followers of Tully that have ascended. They were super strong and fast in Lake of Fire, which we don't really see here. Now we know for sure that Tully's cult is alive and well in the present day. The hotel being burned down didn't stop anything, because the evil is definitely still around. The girls keep running late into the evening and wind up right back at Carmichael Manor. Shoot! Last place I wanted to be. Dang it. Sometime later, the internet signal returns out of nowhere, and there's a message from Chase, only saying, "Hi!" They know his phone is still in his room, so how is this possible? Margot thinks that he could be back, but she stops her from going. Just text him back. They ask where he's been, and he says he's met some new friends. Who are they ask, and he relays that they want to meet you. She tells him to come to their room, and he replies they won't like that. Becca is losing it completely and has to leave right now. Margot pleads with her to just wait, and the door nearby clatters open. Footsteps thump right up to the door, and the visitor politely knocks. Margot gives Becca the camera, ordering her to not stop filming. She steps slowly towards the door, and halfway there it flings open on its own. She peeks around and gets another alarming text. She struggles to even read it at first, and then whispers, "They're in your room now." This sends Becca up the wall, and she panics all the way back to her car. We jump back once more to the 80s, the night of October 10th, 1989, the big night of Tully's unaliving ritual. Word has already spread home about what transpired at the hotel, and Catherine confronts her brother when he comes home, fearing that he was dead too. He says that he was actually in jail due to getting in a fight, all this being the rest of what was mentioned about Patrick in part 2. He was part of the cult, was supposed to be there that night, but wound up in jail instead. She spits that they're all dead, and he corrects they're not dead, they just crossed over. "I was supposed to be there too," he sighs, and Catherine grows more concerned, believing that he sounds a bit nuts. He turns steely-eyed, growling that she shouldn't be filming him. "Turn the camera off." She pans past her sister's dress that is still there. Well, I guess the parents really don't come by his room much. What's going on here, Patrick, with the bloody dress and the creepy-ass clowns? Like, what is the aesthetic we've got here? She leaves the room hearing a voice saying her name and sees her sister there giggling donned in her mask. The light above flickers erratically and Catherine screams her lungs out. Well, now we know for sure, as was mentioned in that earlier scene, what if I could bring her back? Somehow Patrick was able to put Margaret through the cult's ascension process, now making her a kind of evil entity. Alicia rattles off what they know about the mass unaliving. In the weeks leading up to that night, strange and unexplainable events were happening all around the area, as in not exclusively contained within the Abaddon, and of course including the manor as well. Catherine could tell that something was different about her brother that night, and it was the last night of her life. Whatever came for them did so without leaving a single track in the snow, not a trace of any kind. Wait, didn't they literally say earlier there was one set of footprints? Now there's none? What the heck? Some experts. Catherine cries to herself that they're in the house. She opens the door and glances out, seeing more robed figures gliding by. She retreats into the pitch black closet to hide, and a modulated voice says her name. She opens the door to her sister coming for her. Well, that's interesting because this means that Margaret actually killed Catherine, not her father as was believed, or even Patrick if that was a possibility. The girls keep trying in vain to get the car started as more faceless hooded figures gather in the windshield. They bolt back into the house, tearing through the halls as a deluge of red balls is unleashed. Becca tries her phone and a gravelly voice shouts for Margot. Becca wisely thinks that's not really Chase, but Margot is undeterred, telling her to stay behind and lock the door. Becca gets through to 911, the same call from the beginning. "It's not him," she shrieks, speaks and the call cuts out. Catherine appears in bed, lunging towards her, and the lights go dark. Becca turns on the camera light, and she appears right next to her, just like in that picture earlier. Margot navigates the house on her own and comes to Chase with his eyes gouged out and most certainly dead. She rushes back to Becca, but the door won't budge. She turns downstairs, but Pinstripe is there waiting for her. She screams down to them, "I know what you did. I was there." The clown starts stalking towards her upstairs, also seeing a door now glowing red. Perhaps there's actually a gate at the house as well? This sends her the other way, and she gets trapped into a corner. It's not over, she tells the camera, and the clown grabs her face, her letting out a muffled scream. The experts weigh in on how this happened. Sure, the gate at the Abaddon was closed, and the place was burned to the ground, but evil never dies. No fire can ever truly destroy it. The evil will always exist, and it will always be there, sometimes hiding in plain sight. We return to the picture of Margot at the fair, seeing an unwelcome addition to the frame, Pinstripe looming behind her. This must have been the man that tried to lure her away that day, especially after she seems to recognize him here at the end. We flash through his first scene location in the Abaddon's basement, along with his various other appearances throughout the trilogy. As for who is behind the mask, a final vintage video clues us into their identity. Patrick pops up and defends his actions, telling anyone that finds this he had no choice. We all serve him in different ways. A man, presumably his father, groans off screen, and he shouts for him to stop talking. It'll all be over soon. He puts on the clown mask and turns to the camera before stepping into the red beyond, really looking like there has actually been a gate here a long time, and that one was never closed. That's my guess anyway. All this would make the most sense and tie into the Faustian theme present in the series. It's all about making a deal with the devil at the cost of your soul. Perhaps Patrick made a deal with Tully's Dark Lord and had to provide some souls in order for Margaret and him to ascend like the others, and again become a demonic entity of sorts. Also weird that the entity of his sis was still hanging around the mansion in present day decades after her death. Regardless, after killing his family, Patrick ascends and goes on to become the ubiquitous Pinstripe clown seen throughout the entire trilogy. Kind of the mascot of the whole thing, really. That's the biggest reveal of the entire movie, really. Just who is that darn clown anyway? Presumably the other two would contain the souls of Tully's other OG founder bros, but the Pinstripe suit was there before Patrick became him, so he must technically be the latest to take on its moniker, like it's been around for a while. I always assumed Tully was the first one, but hard to say. Now, things are a bit wonky in how things play out, which could be on purpose, including the timeline of things. For example, despite being a huge mystery in the story, we never find out what happened with Arthur's body. This is pretty commonplace in the series, with many of the Abaddon's victims' bodies never recovered, just sucked up into hell, I suppose. The same goes for Margot and her pals. We are told that they died, but never specifically do they say a body was found. But to even say that they died, they must have found bodies, right? How else would you even know they were dead? Otherwise, they would just be considered missing, like Patrick or whatever. It's weirdly vague how the movie treats some of these seemingly really important aspects. The biggest issue is what becomes of Patrick after becoming the clown. After the hotel unaliving party, he at some point moved into his resting place in the basement of the hotel, but then there's Margot's encounter with the clown as a child. How does that fit into the story we know so far? Well, it kind of doesn't really. I had to do some deep diving to actually piece together a reasonable timeline. I found an in-universe channel on YouTube by Bradley, and it features an in memoriam logo for Margot dated 1995 to 2023, also clarifying when this movie is set. So if Margot was around 10 when she encountered the clown, this would have been in 2005, but based on the rest of the dates we do know, this again doesn't fit. In the 80s, Tully's and the others shut down the fair and created the Abaddon, and then the hotel was shut down after their big night. This means that at some point after the hotel was shut down, Patrick left and went back to the fair. He was like just chilling in the basement for like 20 years and decided randomly to return to the fair. It just really doesn't fit in with what we know about this series so far. By the same token, we have the Midway game along with the clowns in storage in present day at the house, but when the heck did they get from the hotel before it burned down to here? Maybe Patrick moved them over, but it's still weirdly convenient that all this stuff happened to survive the fire. It really feels like we are missing vital pieces of the story to even put things together completely at this point. Perhaps, as I said, this was actually on purpose, as the credit scene teases that the infamous fair is due to make a return. The people figured with the hotel gone that it was safe to bring the fair back. So again, it wasn't around, and now they're bringing it back, so when the hell was it there in 2005? This leads us to think that a fifth entry in the series would follow the fair returning in present day, and also see what happened there in the past. There is a potentially really interesting story to tell here, and series mastermind Stephen Cognetti has the same idea. He actually wants to expand the series beyond its found footage roots and make it into a more traditional narrative with the next entry. I guess we'll have to wait and see if the series continues, and if so, in what form that will be. With that, we reach the conclusion of this Ending Explained for Hell House 4. But don't forget, before we go, you can send me me requests for any movies or TV shows you'd like to see me explain by sending them my way on any of my social media accounts at FoundFlix. What did you think of Carmichael Manor and its ending? Would you like to see the series move away from found footage? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Thanks for watching FoundFlix. See you next time.